All right, welcome back, everybody. We're doing Books of Doom. And why are we doing this? The easy answer. Doomsday's coming out. You guys need to learn about Dr. Doom's origin. Is it the same Dr. Doom origin as this one? Definitely not. Whatever we're doing in Doomsday, I have no idea, bro. And honestly, we'll see what the movie does. We'll see what the movie does. But this is 6 issues long. Pretty good size run. But this goes over Dr. Doom's origin all the way from his past as a child all the way up to future day where he is now. We'll probably see a couple of Dr. Doom's series stuff going on recently in this channel. Hopefully we'll do Secret Wars a little bit later this year too. But yeah, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for all of that. Leave any other suggestions below, any other characters you want to go over, runs you want to go over. Let's hop in. We start with Doom talking to somebody. It is said that memories do not form in a child until they are past their earliest years, but this has never been true for me. No, Victor Von Doom remembers all. Every moment of this life, which has tried so hard yet failed to break me, every loss, every sacrifice, every vengeance taken by these hands. I could not forget them if I tried. Father never believed me, but I swore that my awareness began in my mother's womb. Perhaps it was the demons mother was dallying with that made this possible. Perhaps it was their touch that opened my mind too clearly and too early. But regardless, while the father couldn't believe my stories, mother never doubted me for a moment. Dr. Doom is a mother's boy, mother's child. Definitely a mommy's boy. We'll see more of that later. Mom's loving arms, how I live for her embrace as all boys do. If I only could have known why her hands were always so cold. And if you don't know, his mother was a witch, so those demons that he talks about with his mother dabbling with could be real demons. As we see with her in the forest of Latveria, it was only years later after it was much too late for her, too late for father, too late for the entire world, that I would learn about her demons. A child of 3 cannot be expected to understand such things, of course. I only knew that my dear, sweet mother, who smiled at me with such love, also carried a dark shadow in her eyes, and that her hands were always as cold as ice. Father knew, though, that she was dabbling with the black arts, and he feared it with her heart, saying to her, "Think of your family. Why are you doing all this?" And she responds with, I'm looking at everything. Look at all of us. I'm thinking of our family. Our people are constantly in tatters, barely one step ahead of the Baron's persecution. But if we had some power, Victor's life, it could be better than all of this. As he pleads, not that kind of power. These people are chased down by the king and the Baron of Latveria, but she decides that she wants to take powers into her own hands. Father was right. Mother did not understand the sacrifices her desires would demand, nor that the power she sought would be beyond her capabilities to control. So one night, her spells brought disaster to us all. Manipulated by a demon, she was suddenly filled with a thirst for vengeance on Baron's men. The soldiers who kept our little gypsy band on the run, who beat us and stole our earnings when they could, who done worse to our women. And so she did a ritual and went down there. I could only hear of her actions that night, only later, and only through whispers in the dark, but it was said that she killed many soldiers, and at the same time, that the demon who allowed the power to do so took the life of every child in the village as payment. So her mom killed all these people, and to get the power to do so, killed the firstborn of everybody in the village, besides her own son, basically. And so they all freaking hated her and chased her out, calling her Gypsy Witch, where they murdered her. And of course, Doom's father was the only person to find her, looking for a tearful goodbye. The final whispered words he would never share with me. And it reveals that the father went dark after all that. Not evil, but just stayed away from Doom and didn't talk to him very much. And with that, they interview a man from the Gypsy clan that was friends with the father and is like, yeah, Boris told me what the final words were about. They were about young Victor, begging and warning her husband to keep him from dark places, kind of implying that he would become evil after all of this, the terrible things he would do. And he brings up a big moment was her funeral that kind of overshowed why she said this. We buried mother on an unmarked grave in a hill in just the hours after dawn. The camp was on the move, trying to get everyone packed up on the road before the Baron's men found out what happened in the nearby village. No one spoke, but their faces said more than enough. They were scared for their lives. And then they looked at my father, their leader, their friend, their healer, the man who just lost the love of his life, and blamed him, which is fair, honestly. Your mom did or not your mom, your wife did terrible things, and you are the only one that really did suffer besides her death. Yeah, sorry, boss, you're pretty bad. And so they come up to Boris and basically say, hey, man, what happened was pretty bad, but I think we should part ways, seemingly breaking him up from the group, not letting him be the leader anymore. And Boris is like, yeah, are you guys sure? We're on the run for our lives. There's no other time that we should all unite together to get free, to save the day. And of course, the people understandably are like, yeah, but you're a witch. Your wife was a witch. Like, that's terrible, man. And Doom, hearing all this, is like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My father and mother loved these people. These people were our families, and they were going to cast us out? They're calling my mother names right over her grave. I was just a boy. I did not understand. Not long past my 4th birthday, but I understood enough. I understood that this was wrong. So I spoke up, looking at them and saying, hey, shut up. And Doom seemingly is like, yeah, at that age, I was far beyond any normal 4-year-old. I was an intelligent being. I was able, without much effort, to persuade them to see the light, as it were. Father and I were not turned away. And so the person interviewing Dr. Doom says, what did you tell them? Because I forgot to mention, this is an interview for Dr. Doom of his origin story. He's telling this to somebody. So take all of this with a tiny grain of salt. Some of it maybe he fabricated just to look better. Some of it is real, etc. But this is the best that we're going to get. But he decides not to tell them what they said. But the man that is getting interviewed in the jail cell is like, I'll tell you what he said, because I'll never forget it. But he chilled us to the bone right away. And young Victor says, all of you, you say my mother was a witch, that she brought doom upon you all. Well, if you cast us out, I swear to you, I will grow up and be exactly like her. And when I'm truly my mother's son, I will track you all down, and the darkness that she brought will be nothing compared to what I do to you. What an absurd sentence. What a crazy thing to say. This 4-year-old's like, yeah, my mom's a witch. I'm going to become a witch too, the equivalent of a witch, and I'm going to kill all of you if you do not let us stay in your group. And the man goes on he meant it. Like, he meant every word. That group frightened all of us, frightened by a child. Of course, we knew that this was already his mother's child, but we never spoke of it again, not within his earshot. Yeah, spooky kid. Doing this shit since 4 years old is crazy. For the few years after that, we traveled always on the move, father with his quiet grief and me simply behind him. We rarely spoke of mother, and when we did, we never spoke of the magics or what she'd done. I suppose his hope is that as I grew older, I'd forget everything but her loving smile, that I'd lose myself in the happiness of childhood and our travels. As I said, father always underestimated my memory, but though I never forgot, I did stop dwelling on her loss, as did he. And the years passed, our gypsy life did become a happy one. Of course, most of the other children kept their distance from me after my mother's death. Most, but not all. Meeting with another girl very prominent in his life is Valeria, with them basically being childhood best friends and kind of lovers. And if you don't know this, this is the woman that Dr. Doom names Valeria Richards after. Not Dr. Doom's kid. Reed Richards' second born, his daughter. But yeah, growing up, they had a really good bond. As they're playing in the river, throwing water at each other, it's like, Victor Von Doom will get his revenge. No one dunks Doom and lives to tell the tale. Ha ha ha. Valeria was the only friend I needed, the only one who really knew how to make me smile. When I was 11 years old, the only thing I wanted from the world was to grow up and marry her. A simple life seems to a child, even to one like me. And how quickly you can be reminded of life's true nature. Returning to the village, Boris is going to go help the Baron's wife. She is sick, sent a man for his healer. It's okay, Victor. I'll return. I'll save the Baroness, and then they'll leave our people be. And Doom is upset and is like, we have to help. Why are we helping the Baron? His men, they're evil people. They're killers. They pick on us all the time. This is nothing. They care nothing for us, for gypsies. And then nightfall comes and Doom reveals that, yeah, he was right. By nightfall the next day, father had returned with disaster at his heels. As the father comes back, he's like, Doom, we gotta go. I couldn't save her, Victor. Her body was already riddled with cancer, but the Baron, he means to blame me for the death. I stole away this morning and rode all day. The Baron's men aren't far behind us. We must ride for our lives. But where would we go? Our tribe was camped at the foot of the Liberian Alps, so the mountains were the only path, and those passes were treacherous even in this weather. But this was the end of autumn, and so what was treacherous would be deadly the higher we would climb. Our horse fled on the second day, perhaps feeling the rain turn to ice scared her off. Or perhaps she simply had enough that we were damned. Yeah, they're just running away, just left their people behind in the dust, essentially. The people are safe. They really are just blaming Doom's dad. In 4 days we hid, watching the Baron's men on the lower passes search for us. They, with their full stomachs and warm coats, we were freezing. So in this, it was either a waiting game, and I'm sure that they would win. They had all the supplies. We had literally nothing. Knowing that they would lose, his dad is like, oh, you're freezing, my son, and warms him up in his coat, seemingly saving Victor instead of saving himself. He says they will give up soon enough. And so they hide behind some rocks with Dr. Doom in a warm coat and his father just in a regular shirt. Father was right. They did give up, but not soon enough. The next morning I woke up and my father's arms around me. There was something different this time. His grip was cold as ice, and I couldn't make him let me free. His father died, protecting Victor Von Doom, keeping him warm. And so with that, Doom lost both of his parents at a very young age. Very traumatic things to happen. Running for survival, hiding in village camps because he's a gypsy. I have no idea how much time passed that morning. Locked in my father's slow death grip, I stopped screaming and struggling, and at some point, I resigned to my own death, which was surely not far from me. He gave up, but father's cold embrace brought my thoughts back to mother and my mother's hands. At once I understood. I knew that some cold is cold. It burns you to your core, and I knew my mother's true fate. She died in the service of a demon, and it was with demons that her soul would reside in eternal torment. Basically saying, I realized my mother's in hell. And so while sitting there, his friends in the village found him. Sometime after that, the others found us. The next days are unclear. I remember that my father was not yet dead. I remember him whispering halting last words. The Baron men taking his body away to present to their master, and I remember being angry, as I was when mother had died, except this time my anger had become cold. Cold like mother's hands, cold like death, cold like the world. Victor is seeing the reality of the world. And one of the people from his camp are like, yeah, after his father's death, Victor was very different. He was never the nicest of the boys, but he and Valeria were close. Yet even after that day, he pushed her away. She even came up to me crying because she doesn't understand why Victor is suffering so alone and doesn't want any help. And we see what the camp thinks of him is they're like, yeah, well, you don't want to help that guy. He's marked by the devil. He's the equivalent of like the weird kid of the group. I mean, his mom's a witch. He seemingly comes from her. His father died already. He's got a troubled life. Please do not go back to him. Of course, this was before we all knew that Victor had found his mother's strongbox among his father's things. From that point on, his fate was sealed. Mother's effects were a revelation. I had never forgotten her or that she had danced with demons, but to actually see her spell books, to realize I was blessed with the same talent that she was, I knew then that my destiny was to save Mother, to rescue her from hellish torment. I would enter the Netherrealms and find her at any cost. But as the years passed, years where the black arts brought me no success, I slowly turned to science. And this is a very important thing in Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom, by the way, is a sorcerer. Very powerful sorcerer. Almost as good as Doctor Strange. He could be the Sorcerer Supreme if he really wanted to. And he has multiple times. But his use of science along with that and different contraptions, brilliant. That's why he's so powerful. He's a genius on top of that. In my innocence, I thought to combine science and magic, forcing the black arts to follow my rules, not their own. I was a prodigy at sorcery, then I cannot express how quickly I mastered science. And through this mastery in all things I created, I was able to help our people in the ways my mother had always sought to. We see some of his inventions turning the Baron's people into ice. I was able to make the Baron's men run from us in fear. By the time I was 16 years old, I was the leader of the clan. My intellect far outstripped those around me. so it was only a natural progression. Only Valeria did I see as approaching as an equal because of our childhood love. Yet we had grown apart, and when she looked at me, I only saw sadness in her eyes. What more she feel? I suppose she didn't understand my destiny. She didn't understand that everything I'd done, all the inventions and displays of powers, they were only a digression along my true path. My ever frustrating attempts to reach the nether realms to find my mother. All the things I taught myself that had been with that goal in mind. Vengeance on the Baron's men was simply an afterthought to years on the run from these same vicious men. For when I looked at these soldiers, I thought about Father's final embrace and my mother's fatal mistakes, and what drove me to save my mother. Drove me also to punish the people who forced her to seek counsel from the damned in the first place. But this vengeance was almost like a game. Our people striking a blow against the oppressor and then running for the hills. But one night, that all changed. I'd gone walking in the night breeze, walking off the frustration of yet another failed attempt to reach my mother, and in the black mood, I lost track of time and place until I'd ventured too close to the route of the wide patrol, and now one of the Baron's men would make me pay with my life. As a man walks up with a gun on a horse and is like, "Hey, you're a gypsy," I'd left in such a foul mood that I had brought none of my inventions with me that night. Thus, I had no means to save myself with a fool with a gun. The man aiming the rifle at him is like, "Oh, you're Doom. The Baron's reward on your head will have me a castle of my own." And Doom says nothing but just attacks the man. No one means to save me. The cold fire. And he grabs this dude's neck and starts choking him out on the floor. As Doom stands above him, it's like it takes far longer to strangle a man than I'd imagined. I kept my hands locked around this throat for several minutes, after the thought struggling just to be certain. And I looked into his eyes to see if there's any change from living to death, until I saw nothing. Inside, though, I felt the cold vanish as I looked down at this poor fool. My hands began to shake, and I suddenly felt the horror of what I've done. For a child, for one last time, I turned and ran away, thinking this is what she must have felt like that night. This one traumatized him because this is the first time he officially took somebody's life, and he did it with his own two hands, and he's like, I am my mother's son. I am evil. My hands are still shaking until I woke the next day. The dead soldier's pathetic face stared at me whenever I closed my eyes. He was traumatized by this. It was appalling. How could I fall victim to such plague of guilt and anxiety? I resigned to block it out of my thoughts. My family's blood was now on their hands, and now their blood was on mine, so the scales were beginning to balance. Why could my shaking hands not understand that? So the action of doing it is what traumatized him. He's trying to think of it in his brain as a justification, saying like, they killed my mom, I killed one of theirs, we should be free. But no. As another man comes up, Boris is saying, "Hey, somebody is here to see you from the United States." This man walks up, and apparently from his achievements here in Latveria, his science, his technology made its way to America. Of course, my achievements had become so legendary that this general had come all the way to track me down, apparently with some fear that his enemies would find me first. There was offers of monies and opportunity to study in the finest schools and laboratories in the world. On any other day, I might have struck a harder bargain, made them a higher price for my participation, but on this day, with my hands, I wanted to be away from Latveria. And so he makes the deal and says, "When can we leave?" So I escaped to America, where I would lose everything. So that's the first chapter of the Books of Doom done. Thank you for listening, watching, and enjoying. We'll see more of this. Peace out. All right, welcome back. Books of Doom, issue number 2. We are going to go see his time in America in college. We're also going to see him meet Reed Richards. Last time, we saw his little childhood. Him and his mom, his father's death, his mother's death, and him getting recruited, all the fun stuff. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave any other suggestions below. Yeah, let's hop in. My arrival those long years ago was not through the typical means. I had no papers, no student visa. No, what I had was instead my mind, my ability to see further into the future than any scientist these men had ever encountered. That was Von Doom's passport into the new world, and my hosts were eager to harness it for their own goals. With him arriving on a plane down on the United States, welcomed by the military. And the first thing they do is they say, "Hey, you're going to go to college, but let's see your new laboratory that's going to help the government. It's very close to your university as well. Your real work will be in here for us. In these buildings, you have the finest technology in the civilized world at your disposal. And if we don't have it, I understand that you can probably make it." And Dr. Doom says, yes, well, I am quite skilled at that indeed. And so he says, cool, cool, get accustomed to here. Also, let's take you around campus, fill out your stuff. We have to meet another student. Who is that other student? We will see. It's Reed Richards, by the way. As I said, I saw this American arrangement as a chance to escape to give myself a new beginning. And I know why they wanted me, to maintain superiority in their conflicts with the enemy. But standing in that laboratory, I saw things I never dreamed of. And I realized that Von Doom would not be the only one being used in this bargain. Simply as that, I put the troubles of the past aside to focus on the future. There was a wealth of education and knowledge being laid at my feet, and I would take it all to serve my own destiny. When I closed my eyes that night, in my private dormitory room on the State University campus, I did no longer see the face of the soldier I killed. I did not feel my hands tied around his throat. No, all I felt was the embrace of my parents, both lost beyond the veil. And I slept like a baby. And so the interviewer asks, I thought you were supposed to meet with Reed Richards. Did you meet him that day? Too much has been made of that. I did meet Reed Richards in the science lab that day, and he was the other student the general had mentioned earlier. Reed Richards suggested that we did share a dorm, but we did not share one because the general had already arranged for me to have a secret soundproof lab in mine. They were pretty prepared to have Doom make all of their new weapons for them. And we'll see some of those weapons because most of them are stuff that he still uses current day. And these are the prototypes for some of them also. And when he meets Reed Richards, Reed and him don't really get along. Well, Reed's like, you're kind of cool. I want to talk to you. Screw you, buddy. I don't have time for fun. I have to go back to my other personal space. In truth, my first meeting with Richards left almost no impression. My thoughts were on the expanding horizons before me. It wasn't until class a few weeks later that Richards truly came to my attention, where Victor responds to the teacher saying some stuff that eventually loses him, talking about time. Time exists as a constant, blah, 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 blah. It's not linear. And with the teacher being like, yeah, I don't know what you're saying, man. Just stop talking. Reed Richards comes up and is like, I actually agree with him, saying that he's got experiments with other realms, etc., etc. He's seen aliens, poltergeists. They might actually be instances of different planes. And Reed gets upset and leaves, with everybody thinking, whoa, that's remarkable, Reed. That's pretty cool of you. And then Doom's like, well, screw this guy. He's taking all my glory. And he dips out. Richard's intellect was clearly to be respected, but he was so wide-eyed about the outer planes of reality that surround us, so like a child. But I knew the things dwelling there wished us anything but happiness. And the innocence of this disgusted me, because I saw it reflected around me all over the college campus. These insipid Americans caring about nothing but sports and beer and manufactured romantic melodrama. The crying girls distraught over their latest pitiful breakup. The cheerleaders cheering for the empty victories, all so pretty and vacant. And all the women really like Victor Von Doom, mostly because of his accent. Of course, I could have had any out of them at my whim. I was handsome and confident, and more than that, I was foreign. Well, while I had no interest in these common American pursuits, I did develop a small group of followers, students who felt honored to merely assist in my experiments. He sees no one as his equal, only as pawns, where he grabs this one dude named Kurtz. You are going to be my assistant. And Kurtz pretty much agrees. To my surprise, the military base where my other work was done was filled with much the same insipidness that I found at school. They were so pleased with themselves that they couldn't imagine I might have my own agenda. I had to give them the smallest breakthroughs, basically giving them breadcrumbs in the grand scheme of things while he works on his own pursuits. Telling them, yeah, I don't know why everybody in the world really wanted to be the American dream, but since they were so blinded with it, it was easy for me to just fool them. And Doom makes what appears to be the first look at the Doombot. And the Americans ask if he can program it for combat, and he's like, maybe. And anything I wanted from my private laboratory was mine for the asking. Someday soon, I was sure I would have everything I needed for my true breakthrough. He wants to travel to hell and save his mom. That's always been his goal since he was a kid. We saw a bunch of that last issue where he grabbed the spell book and just kept trying over and over again. But 3 years had passed, years of study and experimentation and careful deception. And I must confess, While I remained focused on my mission, I also grew cocky as my intellect sharpened. I forgot my destiny was tied to that of the Von Dooms who came before me. I forgot why I had left my homeland. And in my arrogance, my complacency, I let my guard down for one night. A college party is going on, and he decides to join. But he's been here for 3 years? If I was an American, I'd be like, 3 years, he's doing pretty good. Doesn't matter. I don't think this guy would be any threat. So they offer Doom a beer. He's like, I just wanted to see how everybody else lived their life. Ben Grimm is in the middle of it. That guy's a football star, big on campus. All the girls loving on him. He's giving one a piggyback ride. Yeah, wait until he becomes the thing, bro. Nobody's going to love you, big dog. Kurtz even says, hey, man, all the girls have been asking about you, too. They've been asking about me. Since I'm your assistant, I'm getting action just by association. So Doom actually goes off with the girl. This is probably the first girl he's ever been with since Valeria. And technically, he wasn't even with Valeria yet. I can't recall exactly how it happened, which I suspect as a result of my first sampling of alcohol. But somehow, I found myself walking on the grounds with a beautiful girl, whose name I also cannot remember. I was bragging, telling her of my days in Latveria, telling her what the future had in store for me. And then she kissed me, differently than I'd ever been kissed, not gentle like Valeria's kisses. No, there was nothing gentle about this girl, not that I minded. But when I looked into her eyes, I didn't see the beauty and intelligence of my mother or of Valeria. I only saw emptiness, and I couldn't allow it. And I apologize for what happens next, but he throws her on the tree and basically assaults her. The vacant little cretin could not be the one to get behind Von Doom's defenses. And he wraps his hands around her neck and starts choking. Her empty eyes pleaded, but I felt nothing for her, no pity, nothing. And I thought, what kind of man am I? Am I the son of a demon? And then I remembered my mother, and I remembered that last night in Latveria. And of that, nothing else, save the pitiful creature's life. She fled, and I awaited whatever actions would be taken against me, conjuring a story which would convince the authorities of my innocence. So after choking her, she runs away, and he's like, I'm gonna make a alibi. I'm gonna get out of this. I know I am, because I'm intelligent. But no authorities ever came, and indeed the girl in question was never seen at school again. Not by me, at least. Perhaps her shame overwhelmed her, as it should have. So he believes that she just didn't report it, but meeting with present-day Kurtz, we learn the actual truth is that, yes, she did report it. She didn't just quit school, she was forced out. She tried to press charges against Victor, but somebody in the military was like, this guy's way too important, so no, you can't do that. And they came and ended it. Between the school administration and the government, the whole thing was hushed up. Next thing you know, her folks are yanking her out of school, driving her home in a brand new Rolls Royce. Victor continued his studies like nothing had ever happened, but a few of us knew, and it changed everything for us. Victor went from being this eccentric foreign exchange student, whose quirks we mostly just tolerated, to someone who literally scared the hell out of us. And those military backers of his, they knew and they didn't care. They just wanted whatever they could get out of his twisted mind. My boy went home scot-free just because of what he can do. He technically beat the allegations, but everybody knew what his deal was. And he wasn't really that popular anymore. People stayed away from him. And because people stayed away from him, he withdrew even more into his studies. That momentary lapse would not be repeated. I would not let this place, these Americans, get to me. He decided not to feel love. And from the outside, I appeared isolated, but I was not. Lonely, having surrounded himself with just multiple versions of the Doom bots. My work for my benefactors was outpacing even their high expectations, where he creates what seemingly is a prototype time machine, and they have a bunch of monkeys they want to experiment it on. But he's like, yeah, you should be able to travel through time with this. It's not perfect, but the chimpanzee arrived on the platform yesterday, and according to my notes, I was planning to use him as my first subject early next week, so it must have worked if it went back in time. If you don't know, Dr. Doom has made a lot of time stuff. Man manipulates time like crazy. Big user of the time platform. I doubt we'll be able to see that in Doomsday. It just wouldn't make sense. But the monkey arrival confirms that, yeah, we're going to have a successful test next week. And the general makes another statement that catches Victor off guard, is that Reed Richards has also joined the program, specifically wanting to work on the space program. We all know the results of that. The Fantastic Four comes out of that. Victor's only response to that is just keep him out of my way. And the general brings him to another problem, is the quote-unquote Doom bots, as they are, the prototypes. Why aren't these guys alive yet? Where Doom says, the artificial intelligence is too good. They believe that they're alive and real, which makes them harder to program, which is a lie. It's true and also a lie. He should be able to program them. He shouldn't have a real problem with it. But the Doombots do believe that they are the real Doom. He says, don't worry, we should be done soon enough, and then we'll make a stealth bomb. In truth, much as I loathe the men I worked for on that base, the work was still fulfilling. The base and in my private laboratory, which was poised for a breakthrough none of us could have expected. A breakthrough that would strip reality down to its essence, that would allow Victor Von Doom access to all planes of existence, and where I would free my mother from eternity of torment in the Netherrealms. While working on it, somebody breaks into his apartment or his little room. Reed opens the door and starts reading all of his stuff on his table. Mind your own business, big dog. But he compliments Doom. He's like, whoa, you're ahead of the curve. That's pretty cool. So, you're working on dimensional warps and matter transmutation? Some of the equations don't make sense to me. What language is that? And it's either that he means Latvian or it's magic, sorcery that he's going on about. I'm assuming it's the latter. And he tells Reed, yeah, get the hell out of here, man. I don't want you here. Why are you in here? And honestly, he's rightfully so. You just broke into my apartment. Of course, Richards couldn't understand my equations because I'd gone beyond pure science where his intellect was stuck. I finally found the synthesis between my mother's magics and the science that I dreamed of as a youth. That's why he couldn't read it. It was magic. That was going to open the door for me, and I was foolish enough to believe I was prepared for what was behind it. And of course, his assistant that's been there for like 3 years now, Kurtz, is like, you sure about this, Victor? I can't monitor the energy levels the way that it's set up. And in the interview, he's like, yeah, I helped him. I was scared to death of him. All I did was flip a switch, and the whole place blew to hell. It cost me this eye, and I lost my degree. And getting some clarification, the interviewer's like, it blew up right away? No, it wasn't right away. Time seemed to freeze. Victor looked like he was disappearing or covered in static. But for a moment, just before everything exploded, I heard him say something. And he says, please, mother, I'm so alone. And the reality of this is that it did indeed work. And Victor tells us that, yeah, it was nothing like I expected. I thought for the first few hours that I would lose my mind. Finding her would be like catching a single drop of rain falling into the ocean, where he does indeed find his mother. But at last, after what seemed like weeks, I caught sight of her, surrounded by fire that held no heat, but I still managed to burn her constant tears. Where he finds his mother, he tells her, I'm going to save you. So terrible as her fearful rejection was, the reason for her fear was many times more terrible. With Mephisto coming in, Mephisto's like, yo, who's this guy, Cynthia? Oh, this is your son. Where he says, we don't really take trespassers here. And he sends Victor Von Doom out of his domain. That's what causes the explosion. What seemed like weeks was only seconds in reality. I do not, of course, remember the explosion, but I'll never forget the scream that left my mother. The next thing I remember is waking up a few days later in a military hospital. Within hours of consciousness, the dean of the university was at my bedside. Not to comfort his prize student, no, but to inform me that I was expelled, that it nearly cost Kurt his life, and that I was a disgrace. So boom, kicked out of the school. Does that mean he's kicked out of the government program? We'll see. I stopped listening because I didn't care anymore. And I didn't care when General Matterson stopped in later to tell me that an expulsion would not affect my work for his people. I didn't care about anything but my failure, my weakness. Yeah, the government's like, oh, you can still hang out with us. It don't matter, man. They didn't care. So he got expelled from class, and then he stays with the government. So where are you living at? Where are they just going to let him live in the dorms or in the government base? It doesn't matter. Days passed without a word from me. I was still lost in that hellish realm in my mind, agonizing over my every misstep. And then I removed the bandages. The agony only grew worse. Where he looks and sees that his face is indeed scarred. This is the reason why he wears that terrible mask on his face. I mean, it's a cool-ass mask. I would wear the cool-ass mask. But the scars on his face really just symbolize failure and weakness. That's why he doesn't like showing them. And Doom tells us, yeah, those scars, I could still feel the demon's claws touching me. And when I looked at what was left of me, the cold fire touched me to my soul, and his voice echoed in my mind, accompanied by my mother's screams. I had lost all my years of planning and work, and I was but a bumbling fool. A fool who would never be able to look himself in the mirror again. A week later, locked in bitterness, I was plotting my escape. I would not stay here. Would not work for these smug Americans. It was my reliance on their technology that had weakened me. Their effusive praise that made me think I was more than I was. That I was ready. And since they had taken everything that mattered from me, I would leave them with nothing as well, as he reprograms the Doombots to just cause major damage in the military base. He sends them destroying multiple soldiers throughout, just catching them on fire. All my inventions, my breakthroughs, every scrap of knowledge I had amassed for their use would be destroyed. And then they set themselves to self-destruct sequence. But these are the prototypes for the Doombots. This is the tech that he makes for himself now. He doesn't give that access to the Americans anymore. And so with the generals like, what the hell is going on? They see the explosions outside and they're like, I want Doom for this because we know that this is this guy's fault. He's the only one that can reprogram these robots. They say, yeah, he's vanished. So it was that I left America a broken man with no thought that I would ever see my homeland again. As he hops on a plane, bandages still on, and a flight attendant asks, oh, does that hurt? More than you can know. So yeah, that's Victor Von Doom's time as an American college student. I know you're expecting more work with Reed Richards, but I guess not this time. Reed Richards is not the main cause of the Scarface. It's mostly his own arrogance. So with that, thank you for listening, watching, and enjoying. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and comment. Peace out. All right, welcome back. We're going over Books of Doom issue number 3. To recap what happened the last couple of issues, we saw Dr. Doom's origin as like a little kid, his time in Latveria with his mother and his father. And also, we saw him in college with Reed Richards, kind of there, and his work with the military until he's inevitably kicked out. Where we pick up with him now as an adult, out on his own, and no longer in America after he escaped. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave any suggestions below you want to go over to. But yeah, let's hop in with Doom laying down in a random area, seemingly alone, saying my flight from America had left me but a shadow of what I had been or what I had thought. Now I was a fractured man, a man with no face, plagued by nightmares. And what are those nightmares? None other than Mephisto with his mother in hell. Remember, last issue, he traveled to hell for a short amount of time and also got his face burned by a demon. With that, that was his first little bit of failure. Mephisto kicked him out of his realm, saying, what is this mortal doing here? And now Mephisto torments him in this dream, saying, run. Where is you think you can go, suckling? I am inside of you. I flow in your cold veins like life's blood. So how can you run from yourself? You will never escape me, just as your foolish mother will burn for all time in my eyes. And then he wakes up. Nearly every night, it was the same nightmares that felt so real. And when I awoke, I could feel the scars under my bandages pulsing with the cold fire of the demon's touch. I'd fled for months, trying to lose myself in ancient cities of Eastern Europe, where the Americans would not even find me if they dared to look. But wherever I went, there was always one thing that dogged my steps, that haunted my days and my nights. My failure. Talking about his face. And I believe these are not nightmares. Obviously, they're not if he feels them pulsing at his face as well. It's Mephisto tormenting him every single day. My whole life had been bent towards a single purpose, to save my mother from her torment. And when the time came, I crumbled like a child in the face of true horror. I will confess that I was a bitter man adrift at the sea that spiraled ever downward, lost in the darkness of my soul. And we meet with another man, a very important man named Otto, appearing to be a drunken fool, as Doom puts it, telling him to kick rocks, stay away from my house, dude. Where he says, such a nice boy. Sorry to disturb you. I'm only sought shelter from the cold. Where Doom says you'll learn to stay away. We'll learn more about Otto's importance later, but very important character in this. I spent most mornings simply wandering the streets, nervous energy from my dreams driving me out of my basement rooms. My bandaged face brought an untouchable anonymity that I found pleasing. I could be present without really being seen, People looked at me, then quickly looked away. But when night fell, fear of sleep and dreams kept me working long hours trying to create the fantastic out of parts salvaged from junk shops. Compulsively working and reworking the same devices seeking a deflection I now knew would never be mine. I suppose my rooms must have looked like those of a madman, but a madman is often nothing more than a broken genius. But while my escape to Eastern Europe may have made it easier to stay out of the hands of the Americans, it also put me closer to their enemies. Often in my wanderings, I felt I was being watched. And indeed he was. Was somebody coming up to you saying, "Are you Victor Von Doom? My name is my business, and I suggest you keep to your own, sir." And this man says, yeah, they would tell me you would be arrogant if you are. I work for the KGB. Department X would like to extend an invitation to join. Basically, a bunch of people will come up to him and be like, "Hey, you want to join us against the Americans since you did not work out with those guys? Thank you for the invitation, but you'll have to go on without me, I'm afraid." Basically saying no to anybody that really has been asking. And of course, they're not going to just take no for an answer, so they just have their guns against him. Victor obviously doesn't care. He says he has nothing really left to lose. I was carrying many things on me that could have killed him and his soldiers, but I was foolish and thought to frighten them off instead. Throwing down these red little tubes that explode. Kaboom! Listen to me, you little toad. Tell your Soviet masters that Victor Von Doom is not for sale. I want nothing to do with you or the Americans. You have to fight your silent war without me. I just want to be left alone. If I ever see you again, one of us will die, and I'm not afraid to die. So boom, gets out of that one. That was pretty good. At first, it appeared my tactic had succeeded. I no longer noticed watchful eyes around the city. After all, I was a man who had nothing, so what could they use to threaten me with? And if I was indeed a crazy man, what good was I to them? Let me waste away in my basement with my inventions and my nightmares. Let me fall further and further into despair. Soon the money I'd saved during the years in America would run out, and then what would I do? With him still constantly having nightmares. And he seems to be having every single day kind of have the same formula. Goes outside, sees Otto out there. I was pondering that exact question on the morning. Everything changed. It was a day like any other. It had been many months since my encounter with the Soviet agent. Still ever vigilant, I kept watch for anything out of the ordinary. But never did I expect what awaited for me in the public square that morning. And it's a girl. It's Valeria, his childhood love. What is she doing here? And she comes up to him and is like, "Victor, oh my God, what happened to you?" Embraces him. And rightfully so, Victor says, "I don't understand. How did you find me? How are you here?" Well, that's a long story. Is there somewhere we can sit down? We found a corner in a small cafe, and this lost friend from my childhood, the one woman other than my mother that had ever truly loved, told me the tale. For months, the Baron's men have been raiding our family's caravan, searching for clues to my whereabouts, no doubts a result of my time in America. The Baron was trying to gain favor till the United States offering to deliver me to them, but after a few of these raids, many in the group feared for my safety. I was their leader after all, though I'd gone many years. But a fortunate teller named Christos told Valeria that he'd seen a vision in his teacup, where he says, "You would have been injured, that I would find you here in this town with your face hidden from the world." Where Victor thought this guy was a fool, I guess his predictions looked pretty good. The family had decided to send Valeria to search for me using what money they had to buy her passage. The fortune teller said that I was lost, that my mind was unraveling, and Valeria had left their homeland for the first time on nothing more than that. She had come to save me. And of course, that made Victor very, very happy. And I must admit, for the next few weeks, it appeared likely she would have succeeded. The hole I was sinking into suddenly disappeared. The darkness of my thoughts erased, replaced by her familiar laugh, her caring touch. She didn't even look away when I showed her what the demon's touch had done to me. After all my losses, maybe oblivion was not my destiny, I thought. Maybe my failure was simply the thing that would have brought me back to her, the only person who really knew me. Maybe I had been broken so that her gentle hands could put me back together. And when I slept in her arms, no other thoughts troubled me. My ill-fated dalliance with the college girl disappeared into the fog of memory, and even my nightmares were kept at bay. And that's when Victor says, "Latveria, I suppose that you must go there at some point, but..." And she stops and says, "We'll go together, my love. The family needs you and it's time to heal. You spent so many years without smiling, I thought Victor I knew was long gone. But now, I have hope I can see your smile again, and I'd like to see it on the faces of your children." Boom, she's buttering him up, man. I don't know, Latveria, what's done to our people, my parents, I have no idea if I should go back. Her main goal is to get him back. It's our home, Victor. Nothing else matters. And I was starting to believe that perhaps she was right. Maybe it was time to go home. And the next morning, they both walk out, seeing, of course, Otto back out on the street again, giving her a gift where she says, "That's lovely. Why are you so mean to him, Victor? He's so nice." And of course, Victor, believing that he's above this guy, is like, he's just an idiot. He's a drunk fool. Maybe he's just a sad man who lost everything he cared about. Life isn't always easy on people. You should know that better than anyone. And she walks off a little bit. Victor says, "But she was right. I should have known." And I was about to get a very unpleasant reminder of that. With a car zooming up, pushing her to the side, the guys get out, grab Valeria on the side there. "Keep your hands where I can see him, Von Doom. I don't want to hurt this girl." Where Doom says, "Take your hands off her or I will actually kill you." And the guy says, "Valeria's going to die with me if you try to kill me, right? I got a gun to her, or if you just do anything to me, I'll probably kill her." And the man says, "Yeah, you said a long time ago, threats only work if you have something worth living for, so I give that to you. I show you life, not through with Von Doom just yet." Basically saying, "Hey, you got something to live for. She's right here, actually. I can take your life again." And Doom says, "I was such a fool. I should have sent you away the moment I saw you." And Doom, not being an idiot, puts it all together. Christus is not a real fortune teller. That guy's an idiot. And we reveal in another interview, the Russians came over to him, threatened to kill him. In exchange, they wanted to get her on a trip all the way to see Dr. Doom so that they have leverage over him. They told me where he was, and I made up everything I needed to convince young Valeria to go to him. She was so young and so in love. I'm not proud of what I did." And Doom says, "Let her go and I'll come with you." And they say, "No, we're going to keep her until you do everything we need." He had me, and he knew it. I would have done everything to get Valeria out of his clutches. And before that happens, some sparkles come out. She screams, "Victor!" And then magic appears all on the street protecting Valeria. As it turned out, she's the only person on that street who's truly safe. The flowers somehow created a shield around her. A blur of movement rushed past me. And then the street was filled with magic. And the KGB all catch on fire, a purple flame. And gunfire came. Doom, sitting there, this is not Doom's work, is like, what the hell is going on? And then it was over. But my story, it turned out, was just the beginning. And we see Otto there in the midst of the smoke, falling to the ground, saying, "I almost missed my chance to save you. Old legs too slow." And he tells Victor, "Listen to me, young master. I'm not who I seem. I come from a temple high in the mountains of Tibet. Long has it been foretold that a man who lost everything, who hides his face from the world, would come to our temple to learn our ancient secrets, and that man would become our master." And Otto believes this to be Victor Von Doom. You are the student who will teach the best of the teachers. You cannot deny destiny, Victor Von Doom. I know. And Victor, listening to all of this, is like, oh my god. And Otto continues on, "Find my temple, young master. They will teach you how to master science of magic. Your path is just beginning. Find them." And what does Victor do? Tells that bitch to go back home. Sorry. He tells Valeria, "Kick rocks, lady. You are in danger next to me." And he says, "You could never understand. I'm the one who's different. Different than you, different than anyone. I got a prophecy to fulfill. I'm a goat, dog." And leaves Valeria in the street and says, "As difficult as it was, I turned my back on her again. Destiny had reared its terrible head once more, and I knew I must follow wherever it led. But I knew also that the Baron of Latveria would one day come to vengeance at my hand. He's meddled with what was left of the heart of Von Doom, and he would pay for that. He'd done to me and Valeria." So with that, we come to an end. Thank you for listening, watching, and enjoying. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And peace out. All right, welcome back. We're going over Books of Doom, issue number 4. Let's go. To recap what happened last time, Doom met Cynthia back in a foreign country. He was like, "Yo, we can get back together." And then on the way there, the KGB and some other secret service agency take her and use her against him, making him feel weak and vulnerable. So he decides to not feel like that anymore, letting go of his attachments, and then going to fulfill a prophecy that he was given by a drunkard on the street as the man who will learn magic and become a hero to the strange people out in the mountains. So with that, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm gonna try running those subs up, man. Leave any comics you want to go over below. Let's hop in. My journey from Eastern Europe to the Himalayas was neither quick nor easy, but it did not falter. Destiny had called Victor Von Doom to the highest mountains, the most dangerous pass of the world, and there would be no turning back. Otto had died, leaving me no more than a clue to the whereabouts of the secret sect of the monks he'd come from. The men whose ancient knowledge of science and magic was to be mine. I spent months combing the Tibetan villages among the base of the mountain range, searching for those who knew of the temple in the mountains. More months translating ancient scrolls and tablets, sifting through religious drivel for the answers I sought, until at last, I found something in a charred document from 600 years earlier. We see him climbing up them Himalaya hills and then talking to these people. But this man says it was my father's father who spoke to him. Yeah, bud, trash. Of reference to wise ones who had experimented with things beyond mortal ken, and who, upon the outrage of their brothers, had fled to the mountains. A cod sketch mapped the theoretical location high above a nearby temple. It wasn't much, a guess made from half a millennia ago, but it would have to do. If they were up there, I would find them. Survival in the mountains was not easy. I had grown up around the Latvian Alps, had suffered beyond reason in their harsh climes. But this was a world unto itself, a lost horizon of wind and snow, where the clouds above separated to show the peaks climbed even higher still. A man could wander those mountains for a lifetime, a mere 10 meters from that which he seeks and never even known. But, of course, I was no ordinary man. I had my own devices to help my progress, devices to keep me warm, and to clear my way, blocked passages. Yet still, even with all my inventiveness and all of my willpower, the mountain nearly broke me. And then he started sleeping. It began in my sleep, the cold creeping into my bones, and then into my dreams, where it was always so cold it burned. And of course, Mephisto's with his mother again. He keeps having these same nightmares, where Mephisto starts yelling at Cynthia and says, "Your child was cursed from birth. He was never free." And that wakes Doom up. The dreams about mother that had returned since separating from Valeria. The demon's touch pulsing under my bandages. Given enough time, they would have drove me insane. This I know. And then my food ran out. So for the next days, I wandered starving, nearly aimless, but always climbing. In the wind, I could hear the voice of a demon whispering, with Mephisto telling him to basically just die. And in the haze of sleet, I could see his shadow stalking me like the easy prey I had become. But it was not the demon. And a Yeti bear thing pops out. He's like a Yeti, a beast of legend, and now here it was, hoping to take me nothing more than a memory. My boy's gonna fight a Yeti. I had not planned for this, and in my weakened state, it almost made me laugh. I, the great Victor Von Doom, had come seeking destiny in these mountains, and it appeared it had found me, that it had left me no chance. But maybe this would not be my last moment after all. As he reaches for one of his devices, but before he's able to, he is struck in the chest by the Yeti. And then he throws it in the Yeti's mouth, exploding it and killing him. It occurred to me, as I smelled the Yeti's burning flesh, that the mountain's attempt to do me in might just be the thing that saved me, assuming I could survive my wounds. Now he's got food. He killed the giant beast. That night I was forced to cannibalize the last of my devices to create a fire. Then I did what I could do to bandage my wounds, shutting out the pain of the Yeti's claws. It was not difficult. I had known that touch of claws sharper, and even though weakened from the attack, I knew it was continuing, so I had to be close. But as I climbed ever higher, I could feel my wounds opening, feel the blood seeding down my side. And I wondered if I was to share the fate of my father, to die frozen in the snow. My last thoughts before losing consciousness were of the day so long ago when the cold first crept into my bones, the morning I learned the truth about the world. And Victor Von Doom proceeds to basically just pass out into the snow. I know not how long I lay there, certainly long enough to kill any normal man, but I do not recall the hands that lifted me from that cold embrace, nor do I recall the trip to the doors of the sacred temple. I only remembered walking a week later with my wounds healed. He was saved by the monks of the Tibetan temple. Yeah! And this Tibetan temple is so detailedly drawn. Sorry. It looks good. It looks beautiful. Knowing that once again I had succeeded, had done what no mortal man ever could, and this place of wonder, this lost temple in the mountains, would teach me all I had left to learn. I would surpass these monks, they knew it, and when I did, destiny would be mine to shape. And as he awakes, he stumbles out into the main chambers. And so days became weeks, and weeks faded to years without notice. Ever was I lost in my studies, and there was much to learn. For centuries, these men have been combining magic and technology, almost instinctively, creating devices the outside world could only dream of until recently. So he becomes one of the top users of magic in the Marvel Universe, by the way. And this is how, is because he is not dumb. He combines both magic and technology to get ahead. Dr. Doom is pretty much one of the fiercest, if not the most fearsome villain, if you want to call it that. His perception is that he's a good guy doing what has to be done for the sake of the world. But with his genius intellect, that's why he's able to take down Reed Richards, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, all basically at the same time. He's an Avengers threat, not just a regular one superhero threat, one Fantastic Four threat. He takes down everybody because he's just so damn intelligent and creative. As my studies wore on, I began to lean again towards science, but this time with the eyes of one who has seen that nothing is impossible, that no laws of our world are absolute. And after 5 years among these monks, the day did indeed come when they called me Master. They call him Master now. We have taught you all of our ancient secrets, and still, you grow beyond us. Your mind sees answers to questions we have yet to ask. We bow before you, O Great One. At that moment, I knew the world lay within my grasp, that whatever Von Doom wanted, it would be mine. The question is, where would I start? Doom is fulfilling their prophecy of growing and teaching the masters. Too long had I been away from the world, and while I knew that my ultimate death lay in the Netherrealms, I felt that other fates also awaited Victor Von Doom. So I needed to see what shape the world had gotten into since I had left, and I needed supplies for the things I intended to create. What I hadn't counted on was how much I had changed, where before, though my heart was not filled with pity for the mass of mankind, I now found I looked at them as nothing more than gnats fluttering in my way. He now sees himself above these guys as he's walking down through the town, and he's like, "Get away from me, you little brats." Which, to be fair, I would do that to the kids. I don't want to talk to the kids. Don't touch me, little children. As I wondered how one such as I had ever sprung from the ranks of men, surely it must have been a miracle. The top level of the temple's inner sanctum had become my private quarters, with its tall windows looking out the endless mountain ranges. And in this place, my servants and I had built a device with such that I could observe the whole world. A compound screen viewer, whose receivers drew signals from radio waves, satellite feeds, television broadcasts, and nearly anything else floating in the ether around us. Nothing was kept hidden from me. I watched simultaneous news broadcasts from around the globe, and I tapped into satellite controls and learned of how Latveria had changed, with a sign of King Vladimir is watching on the TV screen. The man responsible for my parents' death had now taken the throne. I'd felt bile rise in my throat, hatred for this man suddenly pulsing in my veins. And then I saw something else. Reed Richards is on the TV screen getting the spotlight. And this is where the hatred starts, with the interviewer basically calling Richards the smartest man in maybe the universe. Suddenly, the day of my failure in college came back to me. I recalled Richards snooping through my papers questioning my science. And all at once, I knew Richards was working for the American military, and they must have sent him to sabotage my work. Richards was responsible for the flaws I had allowed the demon to touch me. Now he blames Richards for his failure. Then we see a little clip of an interview with one of the former servants, saying that after we made that giant TV screen, that's when Dr. Doom started to become a thing. That's when they insisted we call him Dr. Doom. They thought it was weird, but they knew that he would become greater than most men. We always knew that he would not be like other men, so they just did it. My plans were nearly formed in my mind, the first steps toward my true destiny taking shape when my dreams returned, to remind me that, while I may have considered myself removed from humanity, superior to their masses, I shared one thing with them: their frailty, as he gazes upon his failures. I was overwhelmed. Images of Valeria's face, of the soldiers taking father away, of mother lost so long ago to the demon. These things assaulted my mind. I was filled with sorrow. My body ached of it. This was the demon I knew alive in me, trying to prove I was a mortal man, that he could touch me any time he wished and I would fall to pieces. This had to be stopped. Von Doom would not be like other men. No emotion, no pain, no cold or warmth would affect me again. Doom wants to be superior than a man. He wants to be unlike the entire world has ever seen because he wants to be great. And so he gets to work, where he says he's going to start creating a second skin. And he starts forging his new armor. Adaptive technology would line the inner working of this armor, and an enchantment would seal it from the demon's touch, would keep him away from my dreams. But the cold metal of my skin would remind me of its existence, that he held my mother's soul captive in his realm for now. And he looks at the monks and says, pain, that is for lesser men. From this day on, I will know no pain. So bring me the mask. His face is already ruined, so he does not care what it will look like. The monks bring it out of its boiling pot and say, it is ready, master. Never again will mortal eyes gaze upon Victor Von Doom. From this moment on, there's only what I have become. There was only Dr. Doom, and he puts it on. This is when he becomes more than human. And there are some where the mask is burned on. I don't feel like it looks like that way. He didn't show any pain, at least. It might be burned on and might never come off, but it's more symbolic. He will never show his face, his scars again. There are some iterations where you don't know if the scars are actually real or they're just in his mind. I like it that it is real. I mean, it makes more sense that they are real, and that's why he hides his face, and it reminds him of his failure. And Doom stares out the window and says that he will begin claiming his destiny, and decides to go back to Latveria, because it was there that Dr. Doom would first make his presence known to the world, where his mark would be left in flame in the blood of tyrants, the blood of lesser men. So he takes one of his faithful servants, Laren, the one we saw get interviewed earlier, and decides to go back to Latveria, plotting his revenge. And that's where we'll end this issue. Next issue, we'll see him take over Latveria. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Yet this one was a good one where he becomes the real deal. We only have a couple issues left of this series, and then we'll probably drop a big comp. Remember, leave any suggestions below of any series you want to go to, characters, etc. Peace out. All right, welcome back. We're going to go over Books of Doom, issue number 5. Last time, issue number 4, we saw the creation of Victor Von Doom to Dr. Doom. My boy got to the top of a mountain with all of the monks, surviving a crazy Yeti attack, and learned more magic and gained control of the monks. He showed that he was in charge, large and in charge. And now he goes back to Latveria, basically to take it back over. So with that, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can keep doing this. Let's hop in. I found my homeland was much as I had left it many years before, a place whose beauty had long ago collided with poverty and decay, where the needs of the rich were paid for with the sweat of peasants, where debtors' prisons stocked the workforce with slave labor, who toiled under the watchful eyes of the king's soldiers. Yes, Latveria was a place with which would welcome the change Von Doom would bring. And he walks up to the guards. After a week of careful study, I knew exactly how to make my presence known. And as he walks up, he tells them, laugh not at the people you oppress, soldiers of Latveria, for the time of your reckoning is at hand. So swears Dr. Doom. And they're like, what the hell are you? And one calls him the devil. Close, soldier. But I've seen devils, and believe me, Doom is something else altogether. If you ever need confidence, literally just pretend you're Dr. Doom. He is the most confident human being, I think, ever. With that comes like a tiny bit of arrogance, but he knows exactly what he's capable of. As they start shooting at him, and he just blocks all the bullets with a force field and says, you guys are fools. It starts laughing at them. He is a genius. Like, there's no debate. He's top 2, top 3 in the Marvel universe. Only, I want to say 3 because of Valeria being smarter than him or on par with him, and then Moon Girl for some reason. I don't read about Moon Girl, so I'm not going to talk about her feats. I don't know. And after he destroys these soldiers, he stands upon them. No weapon forged by mortal hands can touch Von Doom. And then they look at him, it's like, I know a Victor Von Doom long ago. We fought the Baron's men. And he turns to him and says, I was once Victor Von Doom, and I'd come back to my homeland for one purpose alone, to stain these hills with the blood of the tyrants. And he tells them to go spread the news that I'm coming for King Vladimir. And the prisoners basically just skedaddle. Yes, I could have simply flown to the king's castle and slain him. None of his soldiers could have stopped me. But I wanted my fame to spread throughout the land before I claimed it as my own. For the peasants to see me as their own hero, their savior. And I wanted King Vladimir to fear my revolution. Laren and I had moved quickly, establishing a base of operations in the bowels of an old abandoned castle. And that's where he's flying to in the top. This place overlooks a small village long abandoned after the deaths in one night of all of the children who lived here. From issue 1, where his mother accidentally killed all of these children. He goes back to his mother's failures. Here, we would build the weapons we need and gather the people around us, as I began to reshape Latveria with my own strong hands. And Doom, seemingly lost in thought, is broken by Laren. Laren comes up and is like, what do you need, Doctor? You seem more lost in thought than usual. Do you need anything? Are you thinking about anything? What troubles you, my sir? Or Doom responds, nothing. It's just I've been plotting the course of my ascent, and I believe it may simply take too long. Making these small strikes, waiting for my legend to spread. And also, pay attention to the background. There is a bunch of Doom bots that he's creating. Again, he's been working on these forever, for like at least over a decade. Doom believes that there is a way to make this go more efficiently. He says that he needs his family. So he goes to find them because they were not hard to find. Not for one who was born on the roads. They traveled every season. As he approaches Boris and steps out to him. These years have gone hard on you, Boris. But surely there have not been so many that you've forgotten my voice. Where he does know that it's Master Victor. Asking, what have they done to you? What's wrong with you? No one has done a thing to me, old man. What you see before you is what I've made myself into, something beyond man. I do not expect you to understand, but I do expect you to follow my orders. And Boris says, of course. I had him gather the leaders of the family late that night, and I told them of the road that lay before them. A road that would see our ragged gypsy tribe usurp the power from those who lorded it over us for generation upon generation. And one of the men in the group, it reminds her, helps out Dr. Doom and tells him, yeah, the king has the Russians backing now. They got more weapons, soldiers, than any of us can even grab. Doom tells him that's not a problem. I'm not here for a debate. I'm telling you what will happen. I will lead the people of Latveria in a revolution. I will succeed. I have the arsenal nearly ready. The only thing I am missing are the people, and that's where you guys come in. He wants the people's choice. He wants the people on his side. He does not care about going and destroying the king. That's easy, but there's no point in destroying the king if everybody hates you after you do it. So he wants people to love him. No one knows the back roads of this land better than you, and you will use them. You will send messengers throughout the land to spread my news. That a new day is dawning from Latveria, that I am bringing this new day to them, that those willing to fight against King Vladimir must join me. And it gives them a hologram to show the work that he has already done, that he's already begun. The people will understand what I have become, and that the time of their freedom is at hand. And it's him destroying the soldiers with nothing but science and magic. An interview with Gustav happens, where he basically says, yeah, we all thought Dr. Doom was crazy, and one man stood up to Doom, where this man says, seems to me like you're looking to become king yourself. You leave us for years, then show up in this madman's outfit, and you expect us to just help raise an army. And Doom says, yeah, you got it right. And then he shocks him and says, is there anybody else got anything? That's crazy work right there. And Gustav goes on, yeah, that dude played fiddle at Victor's parents' wedding, but he just cut him down in front of everybody. I'll never forget that. He just electrocuted him to death. Within days, riders had made their way throughout the land, spreading my messages. And in the secrecy of the abandoned village below, my army began to gather itself together, awaiting the orders of their savior, where even a little boy picks up a gun. And then Valeria comes in Doom's castle, though not all who came to serve. Where Doom turns around and says, "This is no place for women. This is a war, boy." Where she says, "I am not your subject." So Doom asks, "What do you want?" And all she says is that she just wanted to see what he had become, and that she doesn't know what to think of it, that this suit of armor is what you have left me for. Because don't forget that this suit of armor is supposed to symbolize that he is not a man, that he is above emotions. So he does not care about Valeria at this point. He only sees her as a distraction. And he tells her that this is merely a shell and that the man inside is not one that you would know anymore. And Valeria sees right through him and says, "It just keeps the dreams away, doesn't it?" Where Doom just says, you can leave. And so they drag her out, basically. Where while she's leaving, she yells that you think you have power now, but you don't. All you've done is build better walls between yourself and the world. Where, of course, Valeria is the one that's correct in this scenario, and Doom knows it to an extent, but he doesn't care. That doesn't matter to him. He wants to become better. Valeria couldn't understand. She still looked for the fragile child within me, the boy she'd loved so many years ago. I felt nothing but pity as she was dragged crying from my sight. Days later, I made sure that her uncle got her out of the country before the true fighting began. Latveria would no longer be a place for one of such gentle spirit. No, Latveria, until I held it in my own hands, would be a place of fear and blood, and not much beyond. So, of course, he still cares for Valeria. That's why he sent her away. Whatever he wants to say is what he wants to say. Doom's not killing me. He's not real, so I don't care. But he still cares for Valeria enough to get her out of the country so that she does not get injured or hurt during this war. As my strength grew in numbers, so also grew my frequency of my assaults on the Kingsmen, with each legion led by creatures of my own imagining, the quote-unquote Doombots, robotic soldiers, much like the ones I'd begun during my training in America. But I perfected them, this time, and simplified their logic protocols. Now they listened to no one except me. They only did my bidding. We began driving the Kingsmen from villages and towns. My rebellion's forces were simply more than they could withstand. Everything was going exactly to plan. By spring's end, I would be face to face with the king on a field of corpses. With each small victory, more of the downtrodden in my homeland rallied to my side to fight for freedom, to celebrate the change that was upon them, to bask in the glory of Doom. With every win, everybody keeps joining him. He's gaining the people's vote again, and that's what matters. But elsewhere, such change drew enough response, where a messenger runs up to the king and says, "I got this. Doom wanted to give it to you yourself." And when he opens it, it's another hologram. "King Vladimir, I'm here to offer you one last chance. A chance to live, which is more than you deserve." Doom says, "You are no king of mine, merely an old man raised beyond your situation too late in life. To me, you'll always be the Baron, the sniveling little man who drove my father to his death because he could not cure your wife's disease." And this is an interactive little thing. He's on the other side of this, by the way, if that's why he's responding. But Vladimir's like, "You are Dr. Doom, which means you are Victor Von Doom." And Doom says, "Yes, I am, but I'm only going to make this one offer. Surrender now or die at my hands." And of course, the response is no, where Vladimir throws it onto the ground as hard as he can, breaking it, with Doom in his tower, getting away from the mirror saying, "I didn't really expect him to do it. I would be very disappointed if he did accept the offer. The true spectacle will begin tomorrow," as he walks over to the balcony. "My people, the king has rejected my call for peace. He has rejected my offer to spare his life. And so tomorrow we begin the final march of our journey. A march to victory," as he looks out at everybody into the crowd and says, "We are going to victory." I could almost taste its acid flavor on my tongue already. And with that, the issue comes to an end. Next issue, we will see Dr. Doom's rise to power, where he will get the throne against the king. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to see that drop. And with that, peace out. All right, welcome back. We're going to go over the last issue of the Books of Doom with his rise to become king of Latveria. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that we can keep on doing this. I love doing this. Let's hop in as we see a giant march heading towards the kingdom. Multiple robots, Dr. Doom bots in the background. There's a giant one in the very, very back, if that big muscular one. The people of Latveria had rallied to me, and the battle lines had been clearly drawn, so began the march to war. And war I would bring to the very doorstep of the feeble man who thought himself my king. And Doom is a servant to his people. He literally on the front lines taking bullets, bro. And while my men and I had made numerous strikes over the past weeks, the battle we know waged was unlike any battle we had done before. And I want to pause right here. This looks exactly like a COD poster. I'm pretty sure this. I want to say it's like COD 2. I don't know if it is. You could comment that below if you know. But it looks like it. I feel like it is. Anyways, I'm going back. This was a true clash of forces, with no quarter asked and no mercy given. This was the war that would define the future of my country, that would spawn the legend of the power of Dr. Doom, and all would stand in awe of the power by the time the sun set on the Temenik Valley that day, all who still lived. And from the Temenik, we would march north to the capital city. Talking to one of the men, he's like, we can make the journey by dawn tomorrow if we march throughout the night. Where the man questions Doom, which is a very rare thing. He's like, I don't know if it's possible. These men are exhausted. If we don't allow them to rest, it might not go good. And Doom listens. He listens to them. You might be right, Captain, but perhaps the people need only to see their leader for their feet to find the will to march to victory. And so off they go to see their people. Walk among our forces with me and see what a word from me can do to the human spirit. Where the captain responds, of course, my lord. There's one other issue, though. The men, these king's soldiers that are taken prisoner. And Doom says, yes, I will not execute these people. You might be right. Oh, no. They wish to join us, Doom. They say among the king's ranks feel the same. Where Doom arrogantly was like, of course they do. And it's human nature to want to go to the winning side. After an interrogation of the prisoners, a new plan of action was put in place. We would march the next morning, and one of the prisoners would ride ahead to warn of our approach. By nightfall the next day, my forces and I were amassed before the capital city, waiting for the siege to begin at first light. It must have been a terrifying sight to behold, the armies of Von Doom at his doorstep. With the current king looking out, it's like, oh my god, they're everywhere. Is there no one in Latveria who hasn't joined that lunatic? The king looks at the captain and is like, is this a lost cause? Are we going to lose? Do you think we're going to lose? And of course, the captain, being so optimistic, is like, I don't know. Maybe we could prevail. Just tell him you're going to lose, bro. Where the king says no man has breached these walls in 400 years. And the captain says that, I don't think this is a man. This guy's crazy. The weapons he has are unlike anything I've ever seen. And the king kind of accepts that he will lose, says, have my sons brought to me. I will lose and I will die, but my lineage will continue. And so with the coming of the first light, our armies faced each other across the field. And the old king watched from the tallest tower of the palace. And when the battle cry was sounded, and everyone was told to fight by the captain, neither side responded. They simply stood in place as if time had been stopped. The king's genuinely confused. Is like, what's going on, dude? I told you to start the order. I told you to start the war, start the battle. And the captain's like, they're not listening. So the king runs away. He's like, no. Yes. The only movement on the field of battle that morning was mine. The king's men had been delivered to me by the soldier I'd freed the day before. And when I strode toward them, they parted like tall grass. Both armies were on Dr. Doom's side. They accepted that he would be their new ruler. He won the people's vote. And as I made my way through the streets of the capital city, the populace merely stood, gazing in my wonder. Doom asks where the king is, and they answer, saying he's at the cathedral, in the tunnel, in the church basement. And so he flies off to go meet him there. The pulsar burst was useful for short distances, and it allowed a dramatic entrance as he crashes through the top of the window, meeting the king on the floor. The king fights back pretty much, grabs Doom's cape, rips it off, and Doom, not really liking that, grabs the king by the throat. And within the sacred walls of this temple, his gods did not protect him from the iron hands of vengeance. And what does Doom do? He strangles him, just like he did to the first man that he's killed. And after he's dead, he says, "So it is done," and grabs his new cape, his iconic green cape, and says a new age has begun, where men bow to him and they say, "Long live Von Doom." He's king now. He's won everything. He's in charge of Latveria. After that, things moved quickly. Latveria had literally been dying for progress, and I brought it to them like a hurricane. King Vladimir's castle was razed that week by my robots. The town of my mother's downfall was named the new capital city, and in no time, its barren homes began to fill again with life. By fall, most additions to the modest castle where my rebellion had begun, and so it was on the dais overlooking this town that my people, so many of them, that they crowded the streets, that Victor Von Doom was crowned monarch of Latveria, and he was crowned, where he vows a era of peace and prosperity throughout the lands. And let me tell you this, that shit happened. Doom, do not play about his people of Latveria. He will not let no harm come to that kingdom. This kingdom is his baby. They love him there. And rightfully so. He is a good damn leader to them, apparently. You mess with Latveria, Dr. Doom coming to you personally and then murking you in front of everybody. He will try to take over the world, but if you mess with Dr. Doom and his people, you in for another world of hurt. There was peace for most, but even in victory, I knew that I would not easily find solace, and thus began a ritual that would last many, many years. What does he do? He goes into like a little basement into a tunnel and summons Mephisto again. And a very important moment happens where Mephisto starts taunting Dr. Doom, of course, and Doom says, "I need a moment. That is all I require. I want to free my mother's soul." And so what's been arranged is that they make a deal. Mephisto says that one night a year, I will allow you to fight for her freedom, but every time you lose, the people of your country will grow to despise you more and more. In just a few years' time, you will be the most hated man in Latveria. And Doom says, "What happens if I win?" "Well, if you win, you can have her freedom, but she will still be beyond your grasp. For where her soul goes from there is a place you will never enter. And so in a way, I will still win." Basically, Doom is still going to go to hell. If you free your mother, she's going to go to heaven, but you're coming down to hell, you still can't get her. And he accepts the deal. And Mephisto just laughs at him and is like, yeah, you're a fool. I get it. This is another story. We probably will cover this, honestly, is where Dr. Doom and Doctor Strange go down and basically save his mother, or attempt to. The reporter asks him a question, is like, what, were you able to save your mother? After Doom tells her all this and says that him and Boris would go down to the deepest dungeons and try to do it, but says, I honestly don't know. My memory's hazy on this point. And then he sends her off saying, I need to go. I want to rest. I don't want to talk to you anymore. But before she goes, she says that Boris told her one last thing, if she's able to film it, is that you would cooperate if I mentioned Valeria to you. And Doom says, "Oh, yeah, that's fine. What you were about to see has been hidden from the world for decades." And he starts to uncover his mask and turns around and reveals that this is a Doombot. But the way that the Doombot is talking makes it seem that he does not think he is a Doombot. He believes that his face is actually scarred. As Doom says, it is not an easy sight to behold. The lady responds, "No, indeed it isn't, but thank you for showing me this." And she begins to leave. And she meets with Boris down in the hallway. Boris is a loyal servant. That's awesome. Where she clarifies that this Doombot does believe that he's the real Victor Von Doom. Yes, he ruled for quite a time while the Master was otherwise engaged with other things. And here we learn that, are these memories reliable? They are. They are the Master's story in his own words. programmed into the machines he built to stand in his place. So is this the actual full story of Dr. Doom? Maybe not fully. There might be a little leeway somewhere here and somewhere there, but more or less, yes. But these Doom bots, especially this one, grew beyond too human, beyond Dr. Doom's control. And Doom says that this is so like him in a way that he refuses to destroy it. And the reporter thanks Boris. Is like, I don't know how to thank you for this. This is crazy information. This is the story of a lifetime. And what does Boris say? Yeah, but you're not allowed to tell it. And he locks her in a cage. He locks her in the prison. You're done, son. This is not America. You do not have freedom of the press. This is Latveria. I am so sorry, madam. Our deal was that I would allow you into the dungeon to learn this master's secrets, but like all who know too much of Dr. Doom, once you'd entered this dark place, you were never meant to leave. And that's how Books of Doom ends, with only me and you knowing Dr. Doom's full story. So thank you for listening, watching, and enjoying. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can keep on doing this. Leave any suggestions below that you want to go over. Yeah. Peace out.